to speak about that. With that, I'm going to move on to Usman, you, and just talking about, um, uh, just looking at it from the SME point of view. So a lot of we're going to get a lot of slack in terms of, all right, the inflation in the country is really high, the GDP is not that great. There are a lot of SMEs that are working with limited resources. And for that, what is essentially a realistic a roadmap that they can use to improve their human rights reporting capabilities? What is it that they can do in terms of, where should they start off from, and what should be some of the practical steps?
Thank you, Noor, and thank you for all the participants for their valuable input. So, in relation to the SMEs, Noor, you and I have done a number of webinars previously, and my key focus point is that starting point, which is capacity building. Okay, so if we look at the our speakers who have raised those. So Fala mentioned a term like raising awareness. Rabia mentioned about taking baby steps. Kashif Saab mentioned about capacity building. Fernanda said about raising the bar in terms of awareness. So the first question that we need to ask is, you can do another public poll now and ask people in terms of national action plan. I'm sure, 90% of the participants would relate national action plan to terrorism. Okay, because in 2014, when that national action plan came out, it was heavily linked to, anti-terrorism and so on and so forth. A number of people in Pakistan, would not know what that, national action plan further relates to when there was an amendment that came out in 2021. Then let's talk about HR due diligence. You've conducted a poll. The writing is on the wall that a number of people, are not aware of that HRDD, and there are so many resources available, not just online but in Pakistan, to help with this. But the question still remains: what is the capacity building, the awareness, and the implementation of such activities that we are doing? So I'm a great fan of Transparency International Pakistan. When they publish reports, those reports are not huge narrations of stories and so on and so forth. They have got tangible results of what that report is particularly about, and that is what Kashif Saab explained earlier on in relation to where we are at in terms of HR implementation. Fernanda explained in where we are at in terms of HR implementation. So the first thing that needs to happen is the dissection of that national action plan, the dissection of that national action plan, not just limited to larger corporations. Okay, it needs to be cascaded down to SMEs as well. So I can give you a number of examples without naming names. There are large corporations trading in Pakistan. They are big exporters in Pakistan. They are not operating in the Pakistani sector. Okay, so they are not doing any business within Pakistan. They're doing everything outside. Okay, now whatever is happening, I'm talking about these SME organizations. They are implementing, I am in contact with them through the, ESG related work. When I speak to them on the HR and scope 3 and so on and so forth, they treat that as a tick box exercise because, their importer or their client in US or UK or Germany or Finland, wherever they are, they expect them to comply with those HR credentials or pay slips and so on and so forth kind of situation. And that is why they have to do it. And they just make it up that they are implementing. Apart from the larger corporations, there is a real lack of implementation of whether this national action plan you talk about, whether, you talk about this due diligence, HR due diligence, and so on and so forth. there needs to be capacity building. There needs to be an element of implementation. And one of the simplest ways that, if you're registering a company with SCCP, you have to have a registration with your local Chamber of Commerce. Why can't we link that look, we link your HR related policies or whatever you're doing with that? Because unless, there is a forceful implementation of HR policies and procedures, that SATE, that individual, that businessman will never ever implement, HR policies. I mean, we are sitting in different parts of the world and different parts of Pakistan. I know where Kashif Saab's office is in Karachi. He needs to walk down his office, go further down, maybe 2 streets down in phase 2 extension, DHA Karachi. There is a huge number of child labor working in workshops as we speak now. I mean, there's no rocket science about it. It's not hidden. If we go in our own households, 90% of our households has that choti ladki or chota ladka who is washing dishes or who is doing dusting or whatever and all that kind of business, because there's no implementation. We know that, if it's an SME, if it is a smaller business or a one-man band, there is no repercussions. I'll give you a small example, and I'll close my comment on that. I'll give you an example of registering a company in UAE. It has 7 steps, okay? And on the 5th step, you have to show HR due diligence. Now, what is that HR due diligence? That HR due diligence comprises of 3 things. You need to buy insurance, health insurance for that particular individual that you're hiring. Okay, you need to submit that insurance package on the MOHRE, as it calls, Ministry of Human Resources. Okay, then the second thing that you need to do is WPP. Okay, which is basically you will make sure that every single individual that is on your payroll is going to be paid through the payroll system with the deduction of gratuity or basic salary or health insurance and transport and whatever not. Okay. And the third thing, I'm talking about the unskilled labor. Forget about the skilled labor. Okay. So the unskilled people, we have to show due diligence in relation to are you providing accommodation or food or transport or whatever? Until these 3 elements are not completed on those 5, on the 5th step, you will never ever be able to register your business in UAE. Now, this is where the implementation kicks in. In Pakistan, we are fostering all these issues ourselves. We can implement all this. I mean, look at SCCP in relation to ESG now. It is happening, because they are pushing for listed companies. They're pushing for larger entities. There is awareness. I mean, we've conducted so many webinars and conferences with Transparency International. We've conducted, Noor, you have moderated yourself, so many webinars because it is happening. So this whole thing about HR can come outside the larger, sort of framework in terms of larger corporations to smaller corporations, to smaller companies, and so on and so forth. Organization of pay slips, payment of taxes, and so on and so forth.